So, Henrik, thank you for your time and for live session, because we were expected something recorded, and live sessions always exciting. So I'm switched to 30 seconds to Ukrainian and tell my story about Wandera, okay? Значить, історія про цього спікера наступна. Ми якийсь час спілкувалися з компанією Jamf, і ви знаєте, що компанія підтримала першу конференцію Mac Admins, підтримала як партнер. Отже, коли почалася війна, мені почали писати працівники компанії Jamf, як вони можуть допомогти. І я подумав, запитав, чи є якісь механізми захистити мобільні пристрої, тому що у знайомих волонтерів, військових і активістів, зрозуміло, що вони там 90% комунікацій ведуть зі своїх мобільних пристроїв, тому я запитав, чи є у них якесь рішення, і мені запропонували безкоштовну ліцензію на продукт Wandera, куди я додав кілька десятків пристроїв і побачив, як вони працюють. Я пройшовся по всіх налаштуваннях, по всіх меню, був приємно вражений цим продуктом і його актуальністю саме на час початку війни, тому попросив на конференцію знайти спікера, і Генрік, він саме за цей напрям відповідає, тому я попрошу його розповісти і зробити демо цього продукту і відповісти на ваші запитання. So, Henrik, I made a short introduction about Wandera, and could you please, microphone is yours. So.
Oh. Awesome. Thank you, Yuri. Yeah, obviously I didn't understand anything beside Wandera and my name, but I guess I'm really happy to have the chance to demonstrate a few things about our products, the strategy we have, and especially everything from Wandera moved already to Jamf. And yeah, I guess we have a real interesting portfolio to talk about, to explain, and so on, and even to sell at the end. My name is Henrik. I'm from Germany, next to Frankfurt, and I came with the acquisition from Wandera to Jamf. So now I'm responsible for the let's say enablement, a bit of revenue in terms of all our security products within the DACH and CE market. So that's the idea. It's our aim to support our partners, to support our internal sales guys, to promote and to sell at the end our security-driven solutions in the most effective way. And that's why Yuri came to me and asked for the demo today. If you have any questions, just let me know. Either just spread in and ask, right? Or take the chat. It's completely up to you. Our aim is to give you, let's say, the best experience, best introduction in the security world Jamf is offering. And yeah, I'm happy to talk about all the. Sorry. I'm just recovering from Corona, so bear with me a bit, but I guess it will work. So I took obviously some slides with me to give you, let's say, an introduction and a theoretical background of what we're doing. And if time allows, you want to jump to the console later on and give you a better hands-on experience, especially for the Wandera, for the now Jamf security offerings. And yeah, let's kick off. And while I'm looking for my slides in here, should be that one. So share screen. You should see a blank black screen right now. hopefully.
Yes.
Yes, cool. Okay, great. Yes, Jamf security. With the acquisition, by January this year, we started to introduce a new team. That's where I'm part of, but also a new, let's say, area which is called Jamf security. It's not just about all the former Wandera products. That's the main part of the team, of the strategy, but also to include some former Jamf products, namely Connect and Protect, to be bundled into that area. And I guess it makes a lot of sense, especially for the Mac devices. But one of the differences and one of the reasons why we created the new logo, let's say, Jamf Security, is that under that umbrella of Jamf Security, we are able to not just take care of Apple devices, as Jamf did in the past and still is doing all the day, for the legacy products like Jamf Pro as an MDM and so on. But we are also able to work with Android, with Windows, or other platforms in that regard from a security perspective. Yeah, so that is important, because everything we address in the security world can be taken, let's say, by any employee, whether they take their own devices or any managed device, right? So we experience more and more working from home and hybrid work stuff nowadays, right? So COVID, for example, made a huge shift, at least in the DACH region over here, but I assume in let's say, mostly every region, to not even to force, but to enable the users working from everywhere, with the need to connect to everywhere, right? Everything, right? In terms of, let's say, Office 365, Salesforce, or any other solution, which are not necessarily sitting behind the on-premise corporate firewall anymore, right? And that's what we address, and therefore it's mandatory to have a broad scope of platforms we support. And obviously, when we talk about Windows and Android, which are not capable of being enabled or being managed by Jamf Pro, we also need the ability to connect to other UEMs like Endpoint Manager, like Workspace ONE, you name it, right? And that's why we created the new team, the new logo, with the umbrella of everything security, right? You know, the statistics, and I don't want to talk or spend too much time on all the statistics, but work is changing, and that's the number one driver for everything we do in that regard. The world and the work is changing, and that's where we want to spend some time on. When we talk about security in let's say, from a Jamf perspective, we have these five items or pillars, maybe, to spend additional time on, and to speak much broader in that regard. We don't have to spend too much time on that slide, but that is just for an introduction, give you an idea of what we are doing, of what we are taking care of, right? I guess number one in everything Jamf does is to focus on the users, on the devices users take and users work with, right? We are not a company, let's say, connecting one branch with another branch, right? That's not our business. Our business is to provide a security and a management for everything a user does and has in its hand, for working or for private use, right? So that is the idea, and that's where we come from, both worlds, Jamf and Wandera. And you see a lot of items over here, who really good, I'd say, describe the new way of working, right? Everything comes from a cloud perspective. That's number one, but it includes the identity piece very much. So the more we focus on everything zero trust, like ZTNA on the bottom, the more we need, and the customer needs something for identity management, right? To manage the user IDs, the credentials, everything like that in a modern and centralized way. Yeah, to get rid of all the individual credentials and passwords for, let's say, an on-premise system, an email server, Salesforce, and so on. Everything will be centralized, will be managed via one individual IDP, identity provider. That's not our job, but we connect to these IDPs of the world, whether it's Azure, number one, I guess, Okta, very famous in the industry, especially for that use case, Google IDP later on, and so on. Right, so identity is a very important factor, but we rely on third party in that regard, and the rest is or can be done by ourselves. Right, we have a solution for securing your devices, for securing your network. Yeah, the data package in transit, obviously for ZTNA, and that's what we want to discuss today. So everything we offer from a Jamf security portfolio is very important, is cloud driven, right? The solution we offer is not an on-premise one in that regard. Jamf Pro is on, or can be handled on-premise. Jamf security can be installed on-premise because of the AI in the back, right? Our AI, she's called Miriam, our machine intelligence, is covering everything we're able to support in here. For example, to take care of everything running on a device, matching it with policies in the cloud, yeah, to verify, okay, whether there's a device will be jailbroken, or any malicious app is running on a device or something like that. So everything on a device will be communicating with the cloud to get the latest info, to get the latest policies, and so on. So that is a very interesting and very mandatory piece in the security world, obviously, and that is where Jamf Protect comes from as a complete endpoint protection solution, but it's only for Mac, right? That is what Jamf brought in. We, from a Wandera perspective, came from the mobile perspective. So our job is to take care of, you see the platforms on the left, to secure your Androids, to secure your iOS, obviously, right? Both from an on-device perspective as well as from a networking perspective, and that brings us to the next pillar in the middle. But before we switch to everything networking, it's mandatory and it's really important for us to provide a service which doesn't run on its own, yeah, like in a sandbox or isolated, but to grant and to have the ability to connect to other services as well, namely the UEM for sure, an IDP also for sure, but also for other third-party solutions to get their information or to send our information to them, to these guys, to let them react in any way when we find something, or to take their information into consideration, like when it comes to Windows. Yeah, we are not an antivirus on Windows in that regard. Our focus on Windows, that brings us to that pillar here, is everything networking based. When it comes to malicious Wi-Fi hotspots, when it comes to phishing attacks, right, running over the network, when it comes to malware attacks, so everything running through the network or communicating through the network, that is our job. On iOS, on Android, and on the Mac, we cover everything security in terms of on the device and the network. On Windows, we focus on everything in the network. So. And that's why the APIs can be so interesting, because usually, especially on Windows, customers have had security solutions, let's say, since 25 years, right? Since the middle of the 90s. they have any antivirus, any EPP, endpoint protection, endpoint detection and response, you name it, solution running. And what we do is to connect them with ours. And though we have great partnerships with companies out there, to, for example, when these guys detect a virus, which we can't detect, we can react, right? We can react. And that is what we do with access management in here. That is our ZTNA, our Zero Trust Network Access Solution. And the idea here is to provide a complete modern VPN solution, to get rid of your legacy VPNs, IPsec-based VPNs, to say, okay, we need to connect manually to any resource. We need to connect always to your on-premise network, to your gateway, right? Even if it's a cloud solution, then okay, what do? You can either connect to your data center and reroute back to the cloud. That's number one. Or in the past, so that's the old world. In the past, there wasn't any proper tunnel to any cloud service, right? The only thing you secured and you managed your devices or your cloud services was to secure the ID and to verify whether the right ID has access, for example, or whether the device under management or not, right? But the communication itself couldn't be tunneled in any way. We address that with ZTNA because we establish individual tunnels to every single service you select, right? Directly. So a direct tunnel to Office, a direct tunnel to Salesforce, a direct one to on-premise, for example, right? With always different policies. And that is the synergy we create with a networking piece to say, okay, if we find anything, or even the on-device piece, if we find anything on a device, and that can be the virus on Windows, as well as any malware on iOS, or scripting, or USB malicious behavior on a Mac, if you find anything of these, we automatically block access to, let's say, Outlook until the attack, the threat, is remediated by any solution, by the users themselves or by any UEM or whatever. That is the idea. That is a synergy we provide to say, hey, we find something, we block something. Okay, everything native, besides antivirus. The rest is native. The rest is worldwide in real time. That's the idea. And when we speak Apple, we do everything in that regard. We secure your devices. We secure your endpoints, like a Mac, like my Mac here, like my iPhone over here, and we secure the devices, the network, and if anything happens, we immediately deny the access to your corporate solutions, right? But that's not everything we do. So let's step one item here back. You see data policy in here, right? Data policy has been the, let's say, bread and butter business for Wandera since 12 years, since the company was founded. And the idea in here was to create a huge database with URLs, with websites, to categorize them and to really granular allow a user to access any, I don't know, gambling website, sports website, adult, or any illegal stuff, or block it, right? So the content filtering piece has been very important in the past, mainly in the past, driven through everything from a usage perspective, how many data user can consume, right? But it moves from a strategic point of view towards a security piece to say, yeah, we allow a lot, but we don't want to have any illegal content. And illegal includes stuff like, I'll show you later on, like child abuse, like weapons, drugs, hate, blah, blah, blah. So there's a huge base of categories and of URLs in the back of stuff we don't, or a customer don't want to allow for their devices to be accessed, right? So from a security perspective, we can create the content filter, but we can also create the content filter from a let's say cost perspective. I mentioned the data usage, right? That's originally bread and butter by Wandera. To restrict the data usage given by individual amounts of of data per month, especially for roaming and domestic data costs via 4G, 5G, and so on, right? The idea is to say, okay, the user gets, let's say, 5 GB domestic, EU, Ukraine, countries you define. But when the user travels abroad to any other country, let's say it will be restricted or it will be allowed only 1 GB, for example, right? That's a hard cut. We can really force the hard cut, data capping by that limit. Why? Because everything we do it will be done on our own, right? We don't need a connection, or we don't rely on any carrier setup to say, okay, we only can, let's say, verify when Deutsche Telekom in here sends us the amount of data consumed by a user. It would be too late, right? There would be a huge delay. We do everything on our own. When we figure out there's 1 GB reached, the communication will be capped. And to allow more granularity for, let's say, productive use, we can add rules to say, for example, famous one, Netflix will be only allowed while connected to Wi-Fi and forbidden at roaming or domestic, for example, right? So we can set up these block filter very granular to all these types, domestic, roaming, Wi-Fi, and either allow it individually or deny it completely, like for adult content, these kind of things. And that's quite powerful. And that brings us or allows us for, let's say, complete endpoint-driven security portfolio and overview, because everything we do can be installed or will be installed at one single app, the one on the left, and will be handled via one single console from the admins. So, do you have questions so far from an overview perspective?
Henrik, Henrik, I was literally shocked when I saw the report of Wandera after I installed it to my own iPhone. I used to visit only Apple-related major websites and 2 major news websites, Ukrainian ones. But when I dig into the report, I find that somehow at this website there was a code, malicious code of cryptojacking and phishing sites. I think it was via the advertising exchange networks or somehow in this this way. But I was literally shocked that I get it somehow on the trusted websites from my point of view.
Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting. So the user, I'll show you something. So that is how it looks from a user perspective. Yeah, over here, similar. And the user always has the ability to see every single URL accessed by his device in the app, right? And that is sometimes really, yeah, as you said, shocking or interesting to see what a device really does, right? And where a device, or where, let's say, any single app like Office is used tremendously many URLs in the back. None of them, or just a minority, has anything with Office, Outlook, or Microsoft in the URL, right? There's so many URLs, nobody even would recognize that that is driven by Microsoft, right? So a proper one. So it's sometimes really, yeah, surprising what a device does when they're simply connecting to normal websites, right? And the same can be transferred to everything illegal, right? To everything maybe not compliant in any way. So if, for example, a user just scrolls down and through websites, official websites, and for example is looking for a present for his wife's birthday, yeah, and looking for on let's say on Amazon-like shopping websites, there's so many stuff happening on the left, on the right, with advertising, with connections, with forwarding rules, and so on, where the device tries to connect to as well. Not all of these URLs, for example, on the left and on the right, would be or are really, let's say, as harmless as a proper website itself. So it's our idea, it's our aim to protect the user, even, yeah, let's say, of its own, right? Because he doesn't want to connect to all these, let's say, malicious sites on the left, on the right. He's looking for a present, yeah, maybe underwear or something like that. But everything to forward could be something much more adult-oriented. And it's our aim to get rid of everything of the illegal stuff as well as on the advertising stuff. Advertising, for example, can be very small in data usage, but it can also be big, right? When there are videos embedded or animations embedded and so on and so on. And if we block these, that could save a lot of data for the user while roaming or while using 4G, 5G, right, cellular networks. So that is the idea. That is the benefits we create and we offer. To say with data policy, and that's just an explanation here. I can show you something on my device later on. That is what we offer to allow the user working with his tariffs more effectively, right? For data policy. From a security perspective, it's almost the same, right? We have a bunch of security threats and attack vectors we address and we are looking for. And even in here, the minority of users would, let's say, actively download any malicious software to do something bad on the device, right? Or something criminal. That is just, it happens, but it's not the majority. The majority goes to the App Store, downloads a game, and doesn't recognize how, yeah, doesn't recognize whether there's, let's say, any malware embedded. It's an official game by the stores. How could that happen? Even the hackers and every script kiddie and the other guys know how Apple, Google, and all the other guys treat their algorithms in the stores, right? So they know how to find ways around, let's say, to embed a malware in a game and put some triggers in it to only enable the malware, let's say, after 5 weeks or after the 5th time of changing the IP address of the device or something like that. There's a lot of triggers possible. So none of the official algorithms within the stores would detect it. We can detect it because there's animal connections happening, right? There's something happening, maybe not happened in the version before for the same game, or trying to communicate to malicious servers, known malicious servers, and so on. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's our job to secure the device and the user, right? That's the idea. Any other questions in that regard? Okay, so let's don't spend too much time on the slides, maybe one slide. I'll give you an intro about the app, how the app is looking. As mentioned, I can show you the app, my app later on, the live one. But just to give you an idea, as mentioned, the app can work with all services we provide. It's just one app, right? It's just depending on the so-called activation profiles, how a device, how Jamf trusts the app will be enrolled on a device, right? That is, this example here just covers the networking piece, threat defense. No data policy, no private access, just the security piece in here, which could be used for, let's say, private use as well, right? Quite easy, quite granular, even to secure your family's devices without any connection to your corporate services. That is option B, or let's say a malicious device, everything in red. Yeah? Quite easy to understand. But you can also see that we have more menus on the bottom, right, with security, data policy, and usage, and that's how it looks when threat defense plus data policy would be installed. And if you would click on data policy in here, we would get the same screen we saw recently, right, the white one, with the data usage, with the pillars and so on, and everything data policy driven. So it's the same app. It may happen that a user gets different activation profiles for several of his devices, maybe a different one for the Mac as for the iPhone. But at the end, we only have one app, and that's quite, let's say, powerful and beauty. Yeah? And at the end, obviously, it's our job. It's very important to inform the user of what's happening on his device. In general, if nothing happens, either from a security perspective, as seen here, or from a data policy perspective in terms of how many data use, the user won't even open the app anytime, right? There's no need for working with the app. The only need is when any notification kicks in, like a man-in-the-middle attack or a malicious app or something like that, or outdated OS, that's a feature I really love, then the user will be notified, obviously, right? Because the detection of any of these stuff in here can have a direct impact to the connection, for example, via ZTNA to corporate applications, right? For example, with the outdated OS, that's a really powerful feature. In general, customers usually lack in getting or forcing the whole device fleet, the whole user fleet, to update their device OSs frequently, right? Usually we have one part of the employees who love to update, who love to have the latest version. When the new version kicks in during the night, the first thing they do is to update their OS next day, right? And the other part of the users never ever update their phones, right? Especially, older guys or something like that. They're not interested in the latest version. Never change a running system style, right? And these guys don't really update at all. But not updating can force the device to become insecure, obviously, right? Because the majority of new versions fix problems instead of add new features, right? Especially the anytime solutions or versions. So it's our aim to make sure, even for private devices, non-managed devices, to make sure that the OS is always up to date, or as much, right? And we have a pretty good feature to let's say smoothly force it, and I'll show you that feature in a second. But I'm open for questions if you have any questions.
Here's a question about bring your own device, macOS based. Do you deal with BYOD macOS-based devices?
Yes, we do. We do from a Jamf security perspective. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Let me jump to one of my portals, or let me take any of these. So, any of the demo ones. So, for us, then that's a good question. It's completely optional to use an MDM or to work without, right? We don't need it. It's obviously easier in terms of the app lifecycle and app inventory and these kind of things. But it's not mandatory in terms of detecting any malicious behavior or something like that, or to connect to corporate resources with the modern VPN. Therefore, it's not mandatory. So for us, private devices are a big driver for the whole fleet, right? Because what we usually do is to force the user to have Wandera, aka the Jamf Trust app, as it's called, the Jamf Trust app installed and running and authenticated via, let's say, Azure, before the access to Outlook, on-premise, whatever, will be granted. So we need the app, we need to have this device secure, because private access and security will be enabled, and only then the access to any corporate resource, doesn't matter which one, and doesn't matter where the app, the service will be hosted, only then the access will be granted. So it's on the user itself or himself to make sure that the app is running, even on a private phone where you're not able to force to have the app in any other way, because if you don't have an MDM, you're not able to force to have the app running. With our solution, we can enforce it, because the other services, especially the on-premise world, only accepts connection from a device with Jamf Trust running, right? It's quite easy. So what we do in here, at the end, we only offer, or we only have 4 policies. It's quite easy, right? And I want to give you a quick overview. Number 1, a question: is the resolution, is it okay from a size?
Yeah, looks nice. Yeah.
Okay, good. So from the data policy perspective, we have 2 policies. The oldest one, and let's say as mentioned, bread and butter, is the one for data, is the one called data usage policy, where you are able to enter the maximum amount of data for domestic use. What domestic means can be defined here, which countries, as well as for roaming use in that regard, right? And the idea in here is to take care of your costs and to avoid any bill shocks and so on, right? Especially for roaming. And with this threshold in here, you can also enable, let's say, a private use up to that point. 100 megabyte is nothing. Let's say a gigabyte, for example, up to that point, because up to that, all services, all connections, all websites will be allowed, except for the ones in the block policy. But after reaching the threshold, only usually corporate services, these guys or your intranet, for example, will be allowed to continue, right? So you can keep your productivity, but save costs and so on. That can be achieved over here. That's really easy to implement, really powerful. And over the last, let's say, decade, that was the #1 policy for our customers. Everything we do, obviously, is group-based. And with a block policy, in my opinion, the most important one we have, that definitely works from the first kilobyte, from the first connection, right? In here, you have the chance to specify categories or subcategories in any way, yeah, with audio, music, and so on, and to make sure they're only allowed within the or via that traffic interface as mentioned, right? So, for example, Spotify will be blocked at domestic roaming, means it will be allowed through Wi-Fi. Yeah, so that is the idea. Now it would be blocked completely. Doesn't make sense for guys like Spotify, but would make sense definitely for things like here illegal. And you see the categories self-explaining, right? And these categories or these URLs in the back, which are driven and repopulated by our AI continuously, these will be blocked every time through every single traffic vector, right? Guys, or things like which can be defined, OS updates, or for example, photo video, really data consuming services, right? Like Netflix. So Netflix will be blocked while roaming, means it will be allowed for domestic and Wi-Fi. Yeah? And you can set it up completely on your behalf, as well as to add custom rules. If you find anything blocked falsely or won't block at all, then you can add the URLs either manually or via CSV in here, quite easy, like the ones below, right? So the block policy is a very important one because of securing your devices, making the devices compliant, as well as to save money, especially while roaming, right? That's the idea of the block policy. Security-wise, we have the so-called threat response policy, security policy, and that's everything we support and cover, right? Web content, app-based stuff like a lot of malware, ransomware, Trojans, and so on. Everything coming from a network, like man in the middle in several with several subsidiaries, plus everything device-oriented. The only thing you would have to do is to specify who would be notified in case of an occurrence, like the users and or the admins, right? Say, okay, an admin should be informed as well or not. Yeah, it's up to you. Obviously, we have the ability to establish some auto responses for networking components like man-in-the-middle attacks. So when we detect a device is running or has been connected to any malicious Wi-Fi, Heathrow, Starbucks, whatever, and data will be intercepted in any way, then you have the possibility to auto secure it, namely to establish an additional VPN from the device to our cloud in real time, right? Automatically to secure them. So that is the one I spoke about, out of date OS, and you see there's a lot of stuff we can cover. One of my favorite ones is out of date OS. I explained the idea to force the user to update their device. So, but what happens if we detect an old version? If a user is running with iOS 14X, it would kick in, right? So the idea is to specify an amount of days after a new release or a new version would be released, plus these amount of days. Up to then, the user has the ability to and the chance to update. After the threshold here will be reached, let's say 4 days, and after these 4 days, we detect it, and you can specify the severity here, and we would keep, or we would, let's say, do it medium. We would put the device risk scale in a light system to medium. What does it mean for a user? From a pure security perspective, nothing would happen, right? The only thing happening would be to get the device medium, and the user gets the information as seen in the screenshot, right? The idea for us is to take the security, the access policy into consideration, like here, with all the company's corporate services. And we can individually take, let's say, Box, individually, only for Box in that regard. We are able to say we allow the access to Box only if a device is not at medium or high risk scale. So it has a on-demand, worldwide, real-time implication of the security status of a device, as well as for out-of-date OS, whether the user gets access to in that way Box or not, right? And that can be individually handled per application. So it may happen that even with an old OS, the user gets access to, I don't know, any intranet news page, right? But the access to the HR system will be blocked. That is the idea. And obviously the user can get notified of what's happening, right? You saw you remember the screenshot of the app. So the user gets the notification, your device is out of date, please update it. And then you will get you will get access to Box granted again immediately. That's the idea. And that's the beauty. That's the idea. What we cover, what we provide, right? We want to provide a complete and a holistic security solution for your end devices, as well as for the users, obviously, to make sure they're only sanctioned devices and only secure devices and so on get access to your corporate data. Because think of a keylogger, right? If a user installs a keylogger, and the keylogger may be isolated in terms of transferring to its source server, but it still would be able to collect the keys from entering within, I don't know, Outlook or Word or any CRM system, right? And that's what we do. We isolate the malicious app, malicious threat, and we also isolate or block access to everything corporate to avoid any interaction of these. That's the idea. That's what we offer. Yeah. Questions?
Henrik, for example, I am as a user have private VPN. For example, OVPN or Clear VPN solution. It's up and running. I pay it as a private person. Then, as a corporate person, I need to install Wandera. So when I start Wandera, how will traffic routes will looks like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when it comes to corporate VPNs, existing ones, for example, we could interact with them, yeah, to say, okay, these guys, the old VPN takes care of everything on premise. We take care of everything cloud, for example, like Salesforce, Office, and so on. So we can work in parallel. When it comes to private VPNs, and the company usually don't want to allow private VPN usage, right? Because nobody really knows what's happening on the device then. We could, for example, block and stop these kind of traffic anyway through the third-party proxies in here. We would detect it, and we can make sure that these communication won't happen again if that's the case, right? If needed. So that is the interaction between all these modules we offer. Because then, if blocked, we can make sure our VPN is running and doing the job to communicate to corporate services, for example. So there's a lot of interaction in that regard. Because private VPN usage can happen definitely more and more to force, I don't know, let's say in China, to get access to the free internet and these kind of things. But it can be used for malicious criminal intent as well. So there's a lot of things to cover.
Okay. Any questions, guys? Okay, Henrik, thank you for your live session and for your time. I wish you quick after COVID recovery. I was not aware about this. So
no, that doesn't matter. It's getting better. It's getting better. It's everything here in the.
Okay. I will provide to all attendees your email if they have any questions, and please tell me if there any kind of trial of Wandera to test it.
That's a good question. So we can allow for existing partners, for example, to offer a solution like a radar tenant like mine over here as an NFR instance.
Okay.
When it comes to customers, when not for the 30 devices customers, but in general, we offer trials, 30-day trials, to also get on the customer base these kind of portal in here, to work with us and the partner together to satisfy all the use cases a customer might have. So yes, we offer the ability to get these kind of environments. It depends a bit on the customer status, on the customer as well as partner status, but in general, we can provide such. If you only want to test with 1 or 2 devices, I'd be happy to enroll your devices into my environment, this one here, if interested, right? So I'd give you a link, these kind of links, like we call it activation profiles, to say, okay, if you want to test all the services we have, these guys here, access, threat defense, data policy, with the VPN, secure DNS, we always get a link, and this link can be provided to anybody, and simply click on the link, enroll, maybe authenticate in any way if needed. In that way, it would be needed. But that's not a big deal, right? It's a 2-minute action.
Yeah.
If just interested in how the app looks like. So yes, we have possibilities.
Okay, Henrik, thanks a lot for your session and for explaining us about the abilities of your product of Wandera by Jamf. And
thank you for the invitation. Right?
Thank you for support. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. See you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.